Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nick Perry, and I'm here with Chase Sussex, and this is the first ever edition of Michigan Sports and Entertainment's Hockeytown Rundown.
Welcome to the Hockeytown Rundown with your host, Nick Perry and Chase Sussex.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Jason Cathy and his partner Allie for doing all of our voiceovers. They're doing an amazing job, and we can't put this on without them. So, Jason and Allie, thank you.
Yeah, huge shouts to those guys. What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing today? Hope you guys are excited as I am to get going for this first episode.
Yeah, this is an amazing time for us right now. This is the first ever podcast that I'm a part of, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. We ran into a couple technical difficulties this morning. We tried recording this and getting this out around 4 o'clock, and for some reason on my end, it decided to take a nosedive. So here we are. This is take 2, but officially take 1.
All right, let's dive right into things. We got some news and notes to go over here.
News and notes from around the league.
So we have a new Red Wing on our hands, don't we, Chase?
We do. The Red Wings recently added free agent Jacob De La Rose off of waivers. They grabbed him from Montreal. And he is just a fantastic addition, I think. He's a former second-round pick back in 2013. He was drafted 34th overall by Montreal. And he definitely has a lot of upsides that he could bring to this Detroit team.
Absolutely. It looks like, from what I saw, he's an amazing two-way player. He can play both center and left wing. He's only 23 years old. The only downside on this kid is he played 119 career games already, but only is averaging 19 points.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the greatest start for him for his career, but I mean, the kid's still young. There's, maybe a change of scenery is something that he needs. That seems to help a lot of players. So maybe, he can come into Detroit, start making some impact, see how he does here. But, like I said, he's got a lot of room to grow given the fact that he's only 23. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what Mr. De La Rose can do here in the winged wheel.
Absolutely. So, on the negative side, if you're following along with the Wings like we are riding the injury train early in the season. We're only a couple of games in, and we've already lost one of the biggest young talents. And forgive me for butchering his name. I know I'm going to do it. But Evgeny Shvetsnikov, and he's out for the year with an ACL tear.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a brutal loss to the Red Wings. I mean, like I said, like you were saying earlier, that's one of the brightest young prospects they have in this team. His brother Andre, recently drafted, very talented family over there. I mean, just absolutely killer for the Red Wings there. He was, hopefully he was going to, make a big impact here for the Red Wings offense this season, but unfortunately that's got to be put on pause. You just hate to hear that for some of those young guys. It's just some season, but hopefully he can come back next season and be stronger than ever. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're so unfortunate right now because we lost Jonathan Ericsson to an injury. We lost Mike Green to an injury that they're not even telling us about. So it's a very scary time right now to be a defenseman and a player on the Red Wings right now because you don't know when that injury bug is going to bite you.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a big problem here this season. They really just have to overcome these injuries. Some of these guys are going to have to step up. Like they say, next man up. You really got to be able to just step into that role. And there are a lot of younger guys in this team, and they've got big shoes to fill, especially for guys like Mike Green and Jonathan Erickson. But they have a responsibility here, and hopefully they can start filling those big shoes that and start taking over some of those responsibilities.
Absolutely. And speaking of Mike Green, and like I said a few minutes ago, he is, from what I presume, down and out for the remainder of the season with a undisclosed illness. And when you're talking about illnesses and you go into saying that it's undisclosed, that's kind of a tricky subject because now we don't know what's wrong with them, but all I can say is I hope to see Greener out on the ice as soon as possible because we're definitely missing his impact out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can hope for for him to make impact sometime this season. You hope for a return this season, but that whole undisclosed injury leaves for a lot of gray area. You don't really know. It doesn't really give a good timetable for his return. And that's just unfortunate. It's tough for part of that makes me think like, oh, maybe this is worse than it actually than we might actually think. And the fact they aren't disclosing this illness is might be a little bit concerning. But we'll have to see.
Absolutely. So with that, let's jump into the week in review.
Okay, now what happened?
Week in review.
Unfortunately, the Red Wings are currently last in the Eastern Conference. Only 2 points of that are coming from overtime and shootout losses. We're now 0-5-2 on the season. That's coming with bad losses to Boston, which was 8-2. And that was a game that I knew wasn't going to go our way just because it's Boston and we've never had a good track record versus them. But I wasn't expecting it to be that bad.
Yeah, I mean, you really weren't expecting that. I mean, the defense just really did not play well. I mean, the Boston, don't get me wrong, Boston does have some, excellent offensive players in that team. They have Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak, who actually scored a hat trick in that game. So that, they have plenty of offensive players in their arsenal, but I mean, still 8 goals for that defense still is really not a good showing there, regardless of how good Boston's offense is.
Right, and then we also came off that bad loss 7-3 in Montreal. And that was a game where I knew coming into it was going to be a little bit of a defensive battle. I mean, Montreal, they're without their captain Shea Weber right now. They're without Max Pacioretty. They're without a couple key players right now, but they still gave us a run for our money even without Carey Price and net.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised by that. The Canadians made a couple of surprising moves, especially with Max Pacioretty. I thought that was definitely an interesting move. But like I said, they're missing guys, and again, I think that's more of a or I should say less of an excuse for the defense there. I guess I can't really call it a bright spot, but former Red Wing Tomas Tatar, who's been dealt in between teams, actually scored a goal against his former team in that game. Now playing for the Canadians, so I mean, it's just tough. I mean, they're missing a lot of key guys, and the Red Wings still can't get it done, and they lose by quite a bit, by quite a deal. So I mean, that's just not, a very good thing to hear about last week's games.
Right, and we have a lot of catching up to do. Thankfully for us, we're not the only winless team right now, but we are the last team in the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference below Florida. And we've played more games than Florida has, and yet we're still doing worse than them.
Yeah, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Florida is also another team that's struggling. I'm not really sure how far they necessarily are into their rebuild, but I mean, it's definitely still a not the greatest situation there for the Red Wings there. I mean, sure, the Red Wings are in a rebuild, and we'll kind of get into that later in the podcast, but I mean, it's still not an excuse for through 7 games to have the same amount of points as a team who's only played 2 games so far this season.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's kind of funny, and I was thinking about it the other day. And just because you change your jerseys doesn't really mean that you're rebuilding. And I'm talking about you, Florida Panthers.
Yeah, it's definitely, they have some offensive players there. I haven't really seen them. I don't really know like where they necessarily picked or, where their kind of position has been. But I mean, they were again one of the bottom tier teams last year, like Detroit was. But I don't really think they're really necessarily going through that rebuilding process, and that's that might be an issue. That might be an area where they might need to think about. Maybe they need to go into full Detroit shutdown mode and start a rebuild down in Florida there too.
Right. And I mean, like I said, they have one piece of the puzzle done. I guess their idea was let's change the jerseys and change the look of the team, and maybe that'll help. But as statistics show, they're 0-2-2. They're 2 points right now in the Atlantic Division. And again, Detroit, we're 0-5-2, and we also have 2 points. That really doesn't make much sense to see that, we're below them. But I guess when you look at it, since we did play more games than them, I guess the NHL just figures that since they are still new into their season, they can catch up a little bit easier than we can.
Well, I mean, they'll have a chance to prove that they're, the Detroit and Florida meet this Saturday, so we'll see how that goes. It'll be interesting to see how they, those two teams clash. Those two bottom tier teams gonna fight for last place down there.
Right, and man, when I was playing hockey, I mean, we used to call that the Toilet Bowl Championship, but I don't think Florida and Detroit are looking at it that way.
Yeah. Well, we have to look at a couple bright spots, so we can move into our next segment here, which we like to call Wings Up, Wings Down.
Wings up, wings down.
It's kind of like our thumbs up, thumbs down section. So we can start here with our Wings Up section, and one player, we'd like to highlight first is Dylan Larkin. So, Nick, what are some of your thoughts on Dylan Larkin here?
I can't say enough about the kid. Michigan boy down to the core. He started out playing hockey for Bell Tire, and then he went on to be one of the best standouts at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. And from then on, I mean, he was drafted by the Wings, went down to Grand Rapids for a little bit, and was a little bit of an offensive standout there as well. Made the Wings roster, and now he has just shown amazing puck presence. I mean, the kid can skate circles around anybody. He's 5 points through 7 games. He leads the Wings in scoring. And, between you and I, Chase, I think we got another Steve Yzerman in the making here with this kid.
Yeah, definitely, and I think a big part of that has to come down with the future captain there. I think he's gonna follow in Stevie's footsteps there and wear that nice C on his sweater. He shows great leadership in that locker room, and it's definitely one of those things where it's he's such a young kid, but he's able to lead a locker room like that, and that's exactly what you're looking for in a young player like that.
Absolutely. So, the other player that we want to highlight right now is young Tyler Bertuzzi. And right now, I mean, he's tied for first place as well, and he's definitely painting a better picture wearing the winged wheel than Uncle Todd did.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, again, he's leading. He's also tied with the Wings in scoring with 5 points through 7 games so far. He's gone through. He's gone through and shown. He definitely has he has a physical side. just like his uncle, and but he's definitely proven to kind of have like a brighter side of that. He's definitely contributed great to the plus minuses. Plus minus is actually at 0, which is one of the better on the Red Wings team, considering how much ice time he puts in. But I mean, he's a grinder. I mean, he's able to, make opportunities in front of the net. He's not afraid to get physical, as you can see by his, missing teeth. He's got all sorts of crazy stuff going on in there. But I mean, he's definitely a big contributor to this Red Wings offense.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we need right now. I mean, the days of Bob Probert, Joey Kocur, and Darren McCarty are unfortunately over. But for Tyler Bertuzzi, he's not afraid to mix it up with guys twice his size.
Yeah, that's exactly what I love. I mean, he's got the heart. He might not have the size, but I mean, he's definitely got a heart. He's got, a lot of courage to go in there and stand up to guys like Zdeno Chara and other stuff like that. Guys who have a, reputation of, being able to throw hands as well. So he's definitely not afraid of anything despite his smaller stature.
Absolutely. So with every positive comes the negative, unfortunately. And we have highlighted 2 players right now that really haven't been showing any promise since they came here.
Yeah, I think that first player, unfortunately, is 2017 first-round draft pick Michael Rasmussen. It was a pretty big surprise. I mean, he came out in the preseason and, he looked really good. I was excited for him to, kind of come out in the main roster. He just signed that entry-level contract, and, I thought he was looking ready to go, and he was going to be a big contributor. But he really has just had a lot of trouble adjusting to that NHL speed. He hasn't had the offensive performance he's been wanting. He's only has 1 point through all 7 games so far. And it's just tough to say. I mean, did the Red Wings maybe pull the trigger too fast on Rasmussen?
I definitely feel that we sometimes bring players in who bite off a little bit more than they can chew. And, I mean, you look at Joe Veleno. I mean, Joe Veleno's back in Canada right now playing for his junior team. And he was brought in and showed a bunch of promise through the preseason, but we just decided that it was in our best interest to send him back to play for the Voltigeurs. And with Rasmussen, he's been in Tri-City for a while, and we thought that we could bring him in and he could make a difference, but obviously that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, you would think, such a big guy would want to, fill his plate and, try to, take a big leap into the NHL, after, playing so well with Tri-State. I mean, it just really hasn't, panned out for him, unfortunately. You just have to hope that maybe there's just a little bit of growing pains here and he'll kind of experience, a big step in the coming games. But, like I said, you don't really want to burn his first year of his entry-level contract. He only has a couple games left. I think he only has 3 games left for the Red Wings to decide what they want to do with him before he burns his entry-level contract. So, do they maybe send him down to juniors?
I honestly feel at this point sending him to Grand Rapids probably wouldn't do anything. I mean, if he's not playing well at an NHL level, I don't really think that he's going to play well at a Grand Rapids and AHL level. I think that this kid definitely got started a little too soon. So I definitely think that he needs to take a year or 2 to hone his game a little bit more and control the puck and definitely figure out his spot on the ice and figure out what works, figure out what doesn't. But for us to burn his contract, I mean, we've burned contracts with people before, unfortunately, and it's all, controlled chaos and casualties of operating a multi-million-dollar hockey franchise.
Yeah, and that's just the kind of stuff that happens with the rebuild and stuff like that. Chris Ilitch has been excited to kind of, he's been excited with the process, the progress of this this rebuild so far. So, I mean, it's definitely, not the easiest thing to do, but I think, he's definitely trying his best. And we'll kind of see how, Rasmussen performs over these next couple of games, it'll kind of be an evaluation period for him to see, what they decide to do there.
Absolutely. And this one really surprised me because I love this guy in Grand Rapids. He was showing amazing heart, amazing promise, but Joe Hicketts, I mean, what the heck is up with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm just surprised on the lack of impact that he's made in this hockey team. I mean, he really looks like a rookie out there. I mean, he makes multiple mistakes when he's on the ice. You know, on defense, he just really has not been a big contributor, and he's given up, a lot of really bad plays, a lot of goals, and I mean, it's rough for him. I mean, he's having trouble adjusting to that NHL speed, which a lot of guys do. It's hard to keep up with some of these very talented offensive players that you're playing against, but that's the kind of stuff you have to be ready to take on. And that's definitely a big stepping stone. It's definitely a weird area to kind of come into when you're playing in Grand Rapids. You're not really playing at that same speed, and you're coming to the NHL, and it catches you off guard.
Absolutely. And if I can, kind of plug these other leagues right now, I came from Huntsville, Alabama, playing hockey there, and they have a league there, and they have a team that's part of the league called the Southern Professional Hockey League. And down there, that's kind of like their version of, AHL, the Grand Rapids Griffins, is, the Huntsville Havoc, which is the hockey team down there. And they both play at the level where these are guys trying to, develop their game, get into the ECHL and get into the AHL. But I definitely think that Hicketts is a guy who, I mean, he came up through the ranks, came up through Grand Rapids, and I don't know what to say about him anymore. I mean, it seems like he's clumsy on the ice, taking a lot of dumb penalties, a lot of tripping, and a couple cross checks that I saw. But I mean, it just seems like he has no real conscience when it comes to playing on an NHL level. I mean, he's careless out there.
Yeah, I mean that's and sometimes it's just a young kid trying to get in some action. He's really trying to I saw him the other night, when they played the Bruins, and he tried to pick a fight with Zdeno Chara, and he was like, I was like, oh boy, I was watching that, and I was like, I don't really know if you want to get too involved with that. And I mean, it's just a young guy trying to get involved with his team, and he's getting a little carried away, unfortunately, and that leads to a lot of penalty minutes, and that's kind of that's something that he has struggled with so far, and the entire Red Wings team has struggled with so far. So he will continue to work with that. I don't think I see Hicketts getting sent down anytime soon, given the injuries on defense. But he definitely needs to work on his game there, and he needs to prove that he can stay on the main roster.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like my old coach said. I mean, if you're not going to produce, go sit on the bench. And I think, right now we're not in the position to make him a healthy scratch, but I definitely feel like if we can get someone healthy enough to get back on the ice, having him be a healthy scratch for a couple games might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Wings definitely have to weigh their options, but unfortunately, maybe that's not something they can do right now just because of, injuries and such. But, he definitely needs to prove over these next few games that he has what it takes, because once these guys come back, if he hasn't proved his worth, then, it's definitely, he might not get that ice time that he's used to getting on the main roster. So
yeah, absolutely. So real quick, guys, if you're a fan of hockey like Chase and I are, and if you love seeing up and comers, please do yourself a favor and check out your local minor league team. Michigan's full of them. We have the Saginaw Spirit, we have the Grand Rapids Griffins, we have the Port Huron Prowlers, the Muskegon Lumberjacks. I mean, there's so many amazing minor league teams to go see, even if you're out of Michigan. I mean, there's so many great teams college-wise and even, minor professional leagues out there. And if you want to see the future of hockey, if you're looking for the next Dylan Larkin, if you're looking for the next, Steve Yzerman, you'll find him at a local hockey rink. So do yourself a favor and check out those minor league teams, because that's truly where the future begins.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you guys aren't, there's no other games to tune into, and you guys are just, you guys are looking for some hockey action to, fill your craving, just make sure to go in and, see if you can support some of those, those local minor league teams. Those are always some fun games to watch, some gritty, action-filled games. You guys are, I think you guys would really enjoy. So, like we said, if you are hockey fans like Nick and I are, be sure to tune into those.
Absolutely. And real quick, I just want to check some different leagues around here. There's some games started up in the Southern Professional Hockey League, and that league is very near and dear to my heart because that's a 10-team league. The closest team to us, they have 2 in Illinois. They have the Peoria Rivermen and the Quad City Storm. And the Quad City Storm is an expansion team, so it's the SPHL's version of our Vegas Golden Knights. Now, their season kicked off this afternoon, and we have 3 games going right now, 4 games total tonight. We have Roanoke taking on Fayetteville. It's the second period. Roanoke is up 1-0. We have Evansville taking on Knoxville. It's 11:56 in the first, and Knoxville is up 1-0. Pensacola is taking on Macon, and Pensacola is up 1-0 with 9:13 left in the first. And our late game is my local favorite team taking on another in-state rival. Huntsville is going up against Birmingham. That game is starting at 7:30 Alabama time. College hockey, there are a bunch of games going on right now. I'm not going to get into the scores, but if you like young talent, like we said, go check out the local college hockey. And if you want to get in on this Southern Professional League, because I'm telling you guys, this is the hockey that you want to be watching. The games are fast. The games are gritty. There's fights almost every single period. So if you guys want to get in on that, the site to watch it is sphllive.com. Now, taking a look at NHL around the league, the only games that I see tonight are the Panthers and Capitals, the Wild and the Stars, and the Predators and the Flames. So if you want to check out some NHL action, the Panthers are currently leading the Capitals 4-2 in the second. The Wild and the Stars are scoreless in the first, and the Predators and the Flames are our late game, and that has yet to start. I don't know about you, Chase, but it seems like tonight is a good night to be a hockey fan, whether minor or professional.
Yeah, definitely. There's some exciting games going on tonight. Definitely, I think you guys should tune in. If you guys want to, do some scouting for our opponent tomorrow night. We got the Florida Panthers playing the Hurricanes, the Washington Capitals. So that'll be an exciting game. So if you guys want to tune into that, feel free. But I feel like that's a really good transition into our next week's preview.
Next week's preview.
So like I said earlier, tomorrow we play the Florida Panthers in Florida on Saturday at 7 p.m. That will definitely be an interesting matchup. Do you have any comments on that matchup, Nick?
Man. Well, the Florida Panthers, as you said in the early goings of this podcast, they are a team that really doesn't see themselves in a rebuild situation, but they just lost Jaromir Jagr, which to fans like me growing up seeing him on the ice, that was kind of a big blow, but understandably so. But they still have a lot of weapons on their team. I know they still have Roberto Luongo, who is, in my opinion, probably one of the best goalies to come out of Florida. And they also have a local Michigan kid, Vincent Trocheck, who If you don't know, he came out of the Plymouth Whalers organization, which is now the Flint Firebirds of the OHL. And he is a certified Red Wing killer. So it's definitely going to give us a run for our money, and I'm kind of excited and at the same time scared to see the outcome of this game.
Yeah, I mean, Trocheck, has been, an absolute monster against the Red Wings. I mean, especially even tonight in this game, we've been firing a little bit. Trocheck already has a goal and 2 assists in this game, contributing towards 3 points tonight for the Panthers. So he will definitely be a contributor tomorrow night against the Red Wings. That'll definitely be an interesting matchup. The Red Wings need to be sure they can lock him down and make sure to limit his scoring opportunities, because that will be huge. He is a big offensive piece for them. And, like you said, he always seems to play so well against the Red Wings, so they need to actually shut him down tomorrow night.
Absolutely. If our defense can click and shut Trocheck down, I mean, that's a step in the right direction for us, because if we can shut down offenses like we did, Steven Stamkos in the Tampa Bay game, I mean, that's big for us. So if we can do that, and if we can start getting pucks and bodies to the net, then I definitely think that we have a chance.
Yeah, definitely. So looking forward, our next game will be on Monday against the Carolina Hurricanes. It begins a short home streak that the Red Wings have, so they're back at Little Caesars Arena. The Carolina Hurricanes are another team that the Red Wings should not take lightly. This team, you would be surprised at how they finished last year, considering they had the 2nd overall pick this year, getting All-Star Andrei Svechnikov in the draft. But, I mean, they were almost a playoff team last year, and they sure look like a playoff team this year. I mean, they have some big contributors on that team this year.
Absolutely. And, I mean, Red Wing fans are going to regret not pressuring the team to get the Svechnikov brothers on the same roster, but I know that if Evgeny was healthy, he'd definitely love to be out on the ice playing his brother.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really cool to see the brothers kind of face off there, but unfortunately we're probably going to have to wait until next year to see that, which is unfortunate, but it's still going to be a really big thing. I mean, we're still going to need to be able to shut him down. Usually we're used to having Svechnikov on our side, but definitely we're going to be playing against one, on Monday. So you're going to have to shut him off, as well as other players like Sebastian Aho, who has been a huge contributor in that offense as well. So the Red Wings need to be careful. They need to limit that offense and keep their goal scoring to a low.
Absolutely. I mean, Carolina has been probably the biggest surprise for me, other than the New Jersey Devils. And I know we got Carolina coming up, and we have New Jersey coming up in a few weeks. And I think if we can beat either one of them, it's going to definitely make people look at our team a little differently, because right now people are looking at this team thinking, is the Dead Wing era back? Are we, the same team that went to the playoffs 25 years in a row? And the answer to the Dead Wing theory is no. We're not the Dead Wings. We're just in a rebuild period. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But the whole 25-year playoff streak, I mean, that's a record that I hope nobody ever touches again. But at the same time, I mean, it's all part of having a younger team. I mean, you look at Carolina and their core, I mean, they have Sebastian Aho with a bunch of other players who are young, fast, and hungry. So maybe what we need to do is we need to watch some film on the Carolina Hurricanes and take some plays out of their playbook before we start playing them on Monday.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that would be, maybe a really good idea. I mean, they need to, the defense really needs to capitalize and to see the weaknesses of some of their forwards and be able to find ways to shut them down, because that's the only way the Red Wings are going to be able to win that hockey game.
Absolutely. So, jumping ahead, the next home game, and this one's exciting for me because this is probably going to be one of the heaviest hitting games during this homestand. We're up against the Winnipeg Jets, and if you know Winnipeg, you know that there are two names on that roster sheet that strike fear into the hearts of many, many fans. One of those is Big Buff Dustin Bufflin, and the other is Patrick Laine. And those are two guys that we saw last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They don't like many people, and they'll show it to you with no problem at all.
Exactly. I mean, Bufflin brings a big physical impact. I mean, to that hockey game. I mean, my goodness, he's probably one of the best defensemen in the NHL. And Laine is a scary scorer. I mean, he is seriously one of the top scorers in the NHL, and it's going to be tough for them to shut him down. I mean, they need to absolutely just eliminate him from that game. He needs to have. It's going to be tough, but I mean, he literally barely needs to touch the puck in that game, because oh my goodness, he is going to wreak havoc on that Red Wings hockey team if they don't shut him down.
Absolutely, and I see a bunch of players, and I put them in the category as Red Wing killers, and we have the Vincent Trocheks, and we certainly can't leave out Patrick Laine. I mean, the last time that the Wings have played Winnipeg, I mean, you've seen since Laine has been activated on that roster, he's given us a hell of a time.
Yeah, I mean, you really, really, really just cannot, allow him to get opportunities as much as, the Red Wings have been, the Red Wings have been given a ton of teams way too many opportunities on defense, and if you give those opportunities to Laine, he will absolutely he's just going to run through your entire team. He's going to give you a bad time, going to leave a sour taste in your mouth for the rest of the night. So it's just going to be, it would not be a nice night if the Red Wings could not shut him down in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all these games are going to be fun to watch regardless of the outcome, but certainly I know Chase and I are hoping that the outcome of the game is certainly a win. And
yes, definitely.
the last game of our homestand comes on Sunday, and that, for some reason, is a really weird time slot. That game starts at 5 in the afternoon. We're playing Dallas. Now, I know Dallas started out kind of slow out of the gate. They've had a couple players that have kind of failed to get off the ground a little bit, but Dallas is another one of those teams that's just kind of scary to play against, because when they're on, and when they're off, they can still hurt you, but it's just that weird balance that they have, and I think that's going to make it really difficult to try and hone a game plan against them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's going to be tough for the Red Wings to come up with anything. I mean, they have some, even though they're coming out slow, I mean, they've got some good goal scorers in that team, including the likes of Jamie Benn, one of the best forwards in the NHL. So, I mean, you really need to watch out for him. There's definitely, a big opportunity for them. I mean, I think the Dallas Stars are definitely a boom or bust team. So you really have to make sure, that they're having one of those bust games. You can only cross your fingers, but, the Red Wings just need to, play better on offense. They need to create more scoring opportunities for themselves and, make sure they can put plenty of goals in the net for them, and allow them to, prevent the other team from, really kind of overtaking them in that game.
Absolutely. And Dallas is one of those teams that, to me, is kind of surprising when it comes to the physical aspect, but Jamie Benn is not shy to throw the gloves down, and I'm looking at it right now. In their game against New Jersey, Jamie Benn and Miles Wood, I mean, they brought it back to all-time hockey, and you can look this up on YouTube right now like I am, and I mean, they are throwing absolute haymakers. So if I was the Red Wings, and especially Tyler Bertuzzi, I wouldn't want to mess with Jamie Benn at all.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be careful about, but I mean, it's definitely, both teams are not going to shy away from contact, hopefully we might have Nicholas Cronwall back in the lineup by then, if he's not already back. And he's been known for those big hits, so I don't think that game will have any shortage of any physicality. So that should be an exciting game to look forward to.
Absolutely, and I know Cronwall is a little bit up there in age, but let me ask you this: are you hoping to see at least one person get Cronwalled before Cronwall hangs the skates up?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I just love watching the Cronwall. There's been some of the best hits I've ever seen. I mean, come from Nicholas Cronwall. There's been some controversial ones, especially against Tampa back in the playoffs a couple years ago. Personally, I didn't really think that deserved a suspension, but clearly the NHL did. But he's just one of the most physical players in the game, even at his age. I'm definitely hoping to see maybe in these next coming weeks we'll be able to see a big hit come from Cronwall. That'd be really good. I think it would kind of give a nice spark to this Red Wings team and maybe inspire some of the younger guys on defense.
Absolutely. I think that's what we're missing right now. I mean, like I said, gone are the days of the Bob Proberts, the Bruce Brothers, and the Darren McCartys, but certainly if we can get some big bodies on the ice throwing their weight around a little bit, I definitely feel like that's the spark that this team needs to say, okay, we can, hold our weight and we can play physical when we need to.
All right, so over the past couple of weeks, I've seen a lot of confusion since the start of the season. A lot of difficulty of fans kind of, having trouble realizing what's going on with this team. I mean, why in the world after, going, the playoffs 25 years straight, an amazing feat, the Red Wings just, all of a sudden just not performing well. I've just seen a lot of people complain and, ask for all kind of crazy things like, firing Blashill and firing Holland and, calling Zadina up to the main roster. So, we're here to kind of, clear up some of the confusion. So, Nikk, why don't you kind of come into our, transfer into the next section and kind of go into explaining what exactly is a rebuild?
Sure. This section we called tough topics because personally for me it's kind of a touchy subject to talk about, especially with Detroit Red Wing fans because they're so devoted to their team. And for me, being a former hockey player, I've seen rebuilds come from the minor league level all the way up to the very, very top. And basically, I'm going to try and break this down piece by piece as delicate as I can because I don't want this podcast to make anybody angry, but I know it's going to make a few people angry, and that's okay. This podcast is our thoughts, feelings, and opinions about what we see on the ice every single week. So here we go. This is my tough topic. What exactly is a rebuild? So we have the Detroit Red Wings, an original six franchise, probably one of the most illustrious franchises in the NHL. You can't speak about Michigan without talking about the Detroit Red Wings. And like Chase said, we've had an illustrious franchise being to the playoffs 25 years in a row, a feat that I've touched on already, hoping that it never is repeated or duplicated. But, yeah, after being to the playoffs 25 years in a row, to take a nosedive like we have, it kind of got fans riled up a little bit. And I see it on all the talk shows. I see it on all the chat rooms. I see it on all the internet boards. Fire Blashill, fire Holland. We want Yzerman. We want Lidstrom. Bring Zetterberg back. All that's fine and good, but here's the thing about a rebuild. It's strictly for player development purposes only. So, when you rebuild a team, you start from the bottom to the very, very top. So, right now, what the Wings are doing is they're kind of in the middle. They moved to a new arena because they thought that that would bring better publicity in for the team, which Little Caesars Arena, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful venue, but I miss the Joe. But enough about that. So we changed the venue, and we thought that that would inspire the team a little bit and give us a better product on the ice. We have yet to see that. So what they did after that is they decided to mix the roster up a little bit by bringing in all these rookies from Grand Rapids and tried to blend them in with players like Dylan Larkin, Justin Abdelkader, Trevor Daly, Nicholas Cronwall, all these guys that have been here, 3-4 years, 2 years even. And that's, in essence, what a rebuild is. You bring in rookies, you bring in players who know what they're doing, you throw them together on the ice, mix your lines up, see what works. And right now, unfortunately, nothing's working. But if you look at the game in Tampa Bay, we were able to shut Steven Stamkos down for a good majority of that game until he got into open ice, and then he just wreaked havoc on us. But if we can take that game and portray it to the rest of the season, I think the future is bright in Hockeytown. Now, I know a bunch of people are calling for Ken Holland and Jeff Blashill's head on a silver platter, and they're getting their pitchforks and their torches ready to go riot in front of Little Caesars Arena. But calm down. Don't go overboard just yet. And if you are going overboard already, reel it back in. Breathe. Take a second. We've seen rebuilds in almost every single NHL franchise already. And the most recent that I can think of is probably Nashville. You look at Nashville, and they're a young team. They started in 1998, and they didn't make it to the playoffs until 2004. So that took a while because they needed to figure out, okay, who can we bring in and who can we intermingle in order to provide a great team on the ice. And I know now, Nashville, hell, they're doing amazing things. They won the President's Cup. Pekka Rinne just won the Vienza. So if we want to be like Nashville, we're doing everything right. So we'll get to the playoffs again, and eventually the Stanley Cup will end up where it belongs, in Hockeytown. Yeah, it's going to take longer than these fans want, but that's okay, because Blashill knows what he's doing, because he developed players starting in Grand Rapids, and you look at Grand Rapids under Blashill, and they were doing amazing things. So Blashill took that mentality, brought it up to the NHL, and now he's developing all these players coming from Grand Rapids in order to play at an NHL level. Yeah, some of the stuff that he's doing I wouldn't personally agree with, but he's making millions of dollars while I'm working retail. So, anyway, and then, of course we got Ken Holland, and, Ken Holland has been around since the Steve Yzerman era, and he has been with the team through good and bad. He knows what he's doing better than anybody else. He's probably one of the most influential GMs out there. But personally, I like the guy. I think that he's doing well. I think he's doing what's best for the team. And I hope that we see both Blashill and Holland's impact very, very soon, because we need to start winning games, and we need to start, filling those seats at Little Caesars Arena for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Ken Holland has seen a lot of success, and same with Blashill. They're definitely, they're both all about, at least Blashill's all about development. Sometimes people kind of get on Holland for loving his veterans, but he's getting better. He's definitely made some smarter choices over the past couple of years. I mean, since 2015, he's really taken off and really started to evolve this team into a much younger team. So I think they're definitely taking steps in the right direction, and I think people are a little bit quick to overreact with with this the placement and the situation of this team. It's really tough. It would definitely be a tough situation to be in right now, especially with given the roster that's full of injuries. There's not really much that Jeff Blashill and Ken Hall can do at this point. They have to do with what they're given, and we just have to trust in them and know that they are doing the best in their ability to make sure that they're making this Red Wings hockey team and returning it to glory.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna leave that subject on this note. Like I said, I came from a hockey background. I played hockey up until 2013 when I got injured in a car accident, and now I can't even step out on the ice without getting lightheaded. So I've been around for a little bit, and I've had a bunch of great coaches. I've had a bunch of terrible coaches. I've had a lot of great teammates, and one thing that they always said, when we were going through a slump and when we were going through our rebuild was trust the process. So Detroit, I know you guys love your hockey. We love the Wings too. But please, trust the process. It'll get better. It's just a matter of time. So, with that being said, Chase, do you think that anybody should be taking the blame for this year? And if so, who and why?
It's definitely it's kind of tough. There's definitely a lot of blame to go around. But it's not necessarily at the point of the season where we should start pointing fingers. It's very early in the season, and it's a little bit too early to say, oh, it's this person's fault or it's this person's fault. I feel like everyone's kind of going through these growing pains. It's obviously not an easy time. This is definitely a difficult transition for players, coaches and fans alike. But I mean, I think everyone has a little bit to blame. Some of the rookies, you could definitely point his fingers at some of the rookies. Obviously, they're not as trained yet at the NHL level, and they're struggling a little bit. And maybe Blashill needs to work with them a little bit better and make sure that they're more prepared. But at the end of the day, it's the NHL. It's hard to prepare for. But I mean, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to get accustomed to. But all that'll come with time. And but again, some of that blame goes towards the fans too. I mean, it's not really good when the fans don't come and fill the seats and support the team. I mean, the team just needs a good fan base around them. I remember the Red Wings used to fill the Joe. I mean, it used to be packed with people, and now it's glaringly easy to see all the empty seats. Even with the black seat covers, they tried to cover up the red seats.
Was just about to touch on that. I mean, I loved being able to go down to Joe Louis and see it absolutely full to the banners hanging from the rafters. And the thing at Little Caesars right now, I understand that ticket prices are a little insane. I was looking online here to try and get to a game, and it's $75 for a nosebleed seat, which is a little extreme, but I understand it. It's a new arena. It's a lot nicer. But even at Joe Louis, I mean, the tickets were like that, and it was full. So you can't blame the arena. You can't blame the ticket prices. You can't, blame the parking. You can't really make excuses for not being there. A franchise is only as good as their fan base. So I can tell that the Wings are going out on the ice, looking around, seeing all the empty seats, and it's definitely a blow to them. And I understand that that's the fans' way of saying, hey, you guys suck, we're not going to support you. But please, 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 if you can afford to go out and see a hockey game, win or lose, you're going to leave there entertained, no matter what.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, as much as this team is struggling, I mean, the history behind the team is still it's so great. I mean, even though it's not the old, it's not the old Joe, it doesn't give the same feeling. I mean, there's still so much history that goes into that Little Caesars Arena. I mean, you can tell the Red Wings are still trying to take big strides and, continuing to show how great this franchise is. And this is exactly why we're all Red Wings fans. All those people who are, complaining on Twitter, maybe, you might have a different perspective if you actually, were at the games and, were able to kind of see in person, this kind of, this, and, how hard these guys are trying night in and night out. These guys work their butts off every game, no matter what their record is. They are always going out there and they're always putting in work. So you guys can enjoy the content, the games. And, that's the biggest part. So, I mean, the fans definitely need to come out and show some more support.
Absolutely. And I mean, I guess I have a little bit different perspective and I see it from a hockey player's point of view. And I think that that's why you and I can, bounce these ideas back and forth off of each other so well, because you're a fan and I'm a hockey player. So it's definitely a good mix between you and I right now. I love how we're able to come in here and get straight to the point. And I apologize for rambling a little bit, but I just get on a roll because I'm so passionate about this team, and I know all of you are. So I appreciate you guys bearing with us, because we're going to just provide you guys with the best 2-point perspectives and observations that we can. So the last bullet point here that I want to touch on these tough topics is an issue that I've heard since the very last game before we got eliminated from the playoffs and broke that 25-year streak. So, Mr. Sussex, I have to ask you the very, very controversial and important question. Is it time to fire Jeff Blashill?
I've definitely heard this conversation go around plenty. We were just having a conversation about it today with one of our guys, Braxton. There's definitely been a lot of conversation around about that, and it's definitely been, kind of a blurry subject. But, I just don't think it's the right time to fire Blashill, because I just don't see what, changing head coach is going to do. I think it's only going to derail the team with what they have right now. I feel like the locker room, is kind of around Jeff Blashill. There hasn't really been any locker room issues, I think. I don't think. I mean, Blashill has a good understanding of his team right now. And sure, there might be other, replacements that might be available. But, I mean, as of right now, I think Blashill is still the best choice going forward. I mean, he's on his last year of his contract. They might as well just see it out and just have him finish his last year. And maybe we bring in, it's a possibility they bring in an interim, but I just don't really see a really good replacement right now that would necessarily, that would perform any better than Blashill, because, he could be a scapegoat and say, yeah, maybe Blashill was the issue, but what if the team doesn't get any better under, any kind of interim GM that they decide to put, or any interim head coach they decide to put in place? I mean, I just don't think it's the right time to fire Jeff Blashill. He's so good with developmental guys, and, he's worked with a lot of these guys who played with the Griffins, and that chemistry there is just something that a lot of other guys don't have, and I just don't feel like it would be the right time to kind of ruin that chemistry, especially through the season. I feel like that would have been an off-season move. It might be, something that's kind of tough to, make that move at this point in the season, but, it's still early. We could still see a possible move, but maybe, the Red Wings kind of want to dump him off before anything gets any worse.
I can't really speak on a coach's perspective, but as a player, I mean, you have to rally around your coach no matter what. If you don't like the guy, oh well, he's the one who's helping to sign your paychecks. He's the one who is putting the plans together to get you out on the ice to make plays. So personally, I wanted to hate Blashill because, oh my God, we brought a, AHL coach up to the NHL roster. Oh my God, what are we doing? But as I sat and looked, I mean, yeah, I jumped on the Fire Blashill train after we broke that playoff streak, but when I finally realized what he was doing, I understood it. And I agree with you, Chase. He is a genius when it comes to developing players because I know that there are a lot of players right now who were drafted by other teams that said that their first choice was Detroit because they wanted to play for the fans, they wanted to play under Blashill, they wanted to play for the franchise, and I hope that we can continue that trend because who is it? Jack Hughes, I believe, is the number one right now on the draft list, and I know that there are a lot of fans that are saying we're tanking on purpose because we're trying to get another local Michigan boy in Jack Hughes and kind of reunite the Michigan Wolverines there on the ice with Dylan Larkin and Jack Hughes, but I don't know if Blashill's going to go that far, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that hashtag kind of trending around the Detroit Red Wings Facebook and Twitter. The whole hashtag lose to choose Hughes. But I don't really know if they're that's a part of the rebuild. Maybe I wouldn't say the Red Wings are trying to go out there and lose games on purpose and purposely tank. But the whole point is to make sure that your rookies are getting up to NHL speed, and if that means having a poor record, then that's what it means. I mean, it means being able to have a sacrificial season to the point where you can grab guys and great talent like Jack Hughes and be able to have those guys on your roster. I mean, that would just be something that's great. And obviously, like like it showed last year, clearly the Red Wings, even if they are last place in the league, only have around, I think it was an 18.5 or 19% chance to grab the number one overall pick in the lottery. I mean, clearly they got absolutely robbed of a top 5 pick last year after finishing bottom 3 in the league last year. But it'll be interesting to see if that's if Jack Hughes is a possibility. Personally, I would love to see him in the winged wheel uniform there, but like I said, it'll be interesting to see how the season pans out.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know, Chase is actually a devoted Red Wings fan from South Carolina. And so let me get this straight. Were you born up here, or did you move up here and then decide to go back to South Carolina, or how did South Carolina come into play here?
I was actually born in a small town in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I was actually born in Michigan, and I've done a lot of moving around. My dad has had the opportunity to work for multiple different companies, and we've just been moving around just ever since I was a kid. It was a big thing. We moved out of Michigan when I was 5, and we haven't really settled down in a place yet. We've been all over the place. We've been to Florida. We've been back up north of Wisconsin, and then we settled back down here in Wisconsin. I mean, in South Carolina. So, it's definitely been an interesting journey. But like I said, I've never really hopped off the train there. I've always been a big Detroit body at heart, and the Red Wings have always been my team. So it's never been something I've ever wanted to give up. I've loved this team ever since I was a little kid. So it's definitely, I definitely still continue to root for them down here.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's so amazing to hear. And for me, I just moved back up to Michigan from a major city down in Alabama called Huntsville. And I know you and I know firsthand the effects of these extremely devastating hurricanes. I know for me, the college that I was supposed to go to in Greenville, North Carolina, is still experiencing power outages, and I know half of Greenville is still underwater. I mean, did you get hit by anything that was coming your way this year?
We actually didn't get hit anything by anything crazy. Our area definitely did. Greenville, where you were talking about, is only about like 20 minutes away from where I live. So we did experience some high winds and a lot of rain, but luckily no massive flooding or anything around me. But there definitely were a lot of people who weren't that fortunate. There were a lot of people who were without power. Their houses were, absolutely destroyed, and their lives were changed. I mean, it was terrible, and for both Florence and Hurricane Michael to come right through my area was definitely, I think, a scary thing for me and a lot of other people. I mean, it's something I never have really experienced. So it was definitely a life-changing experience for me. The way, how people, reacted to that, it was just a scary time. I mean, seeing all over the news how people, how close people are to me, and they're being impacted so hard. I mean, it's just, it's tough for me not to want to, reach out to my community and help. So I would love to, encourage you guys as well to reach out a helping hand to the area down here. Hockey's a lot bigger than just the sport. So anything you can have, anything helps. Donating any kind of money you have, maybe just spare change that you might have, just donating to the Red Cross, helping people, helping the recovery cause down here would just be, something excellent. And, Nikk and I here at the podcast would really appreciate it, especially me coming from my area. I've definitely done, my fair share of donating to that cause and trying to help out as much as I can around here. And, because I have had friends who live near me who have been impacted by the storm. And it's not fun. I mean, it's definitely a terrible time for a lot of these people. And, unfortunately, a lot of people, their lives were just changed forever. So, I mean, like I said, if you guys have anything, you guys can, donate, out of the kindness of your heart. Just make sure, see if you can, just donate even just a little and help out the cause down here. And see if you can help out communities.
Absolutely. And the reason I wanted to touch on that real quick is because, the Hockeytown Rundown isn't just a podcast for hockey. It's a life podcast. We don't want to just sit here and talk about hockey all day, even though, we could for hours and hours and hours, but we also want to touch on a couple real life topics. And from me being in Alabama, I saw firsthand last year, hurricane season, we had people from Florida, from Mississippi, Louisiana, even from Tennessee coming to our area in Huntsville and filling up I want to say maybe 500 seat church right down the street from my house, because that's all they could get. And personally, I mean, like Chase said, I mean, I can't say better than that. Hockey is more than a game. It's family. So from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure the bottom of Chase's heart, we want to send our prayers and definitely well wishes to all those affected by the hurricanes in the Carolinas, as well as the lower coast area there. We hope you guys get on your feet soon, and we hope that we can see you guys out at the rink very, very soon. I know that there were a couple hockey games that had to unfortunately be canceled due to this, and, it kind of breaks my heart to see all the devastation. And like Chase said, I mean, if you can donate your spare change and even your spare time, get involved, join Habitat for Humanity for a little bit and go down there. I know that there are a bunch of church groups who are looking to do that. And I know the Red Cross is looking at volunteers right now to go down there and help with some medical issues and also to build houses. So if you can donate any of your spare time or even like a toothbrush, I'm sure somebody down there in one of the Carolinas would greatly appreciate it. So with that being said, we want to move on to a lighter note, and we want to kind of wind this podcast down a little bit with the Rising Star Spotlight.
He is so awesome.
Rising Star Spotlight.
And here we want to touch on somebody who is new to wearing the winged wheel, and somebody who I love this guy. I can't say enough good things about him. He's shown great heart, great development, and Chase can tell you a little bit more about him, probably better than I can, and that's Dennis Cholowski.
Yeah, Dennis Cholowski has been a huge impact player for the Red Wings, and I think he's made the most impact out of any rookie so far. This season, he's already had early in the season he was leading, he was tied for the lead with 3 points, I believe, and he's just he's a spectacular defenseman. He's a physical guy. He's not necessarily the biggest guy, but he's definitely always physical. The best thing about him is how versatile he is. He can play so well on both sides of the ice. Like I said, I think he's outperformed every other rookie so far on the roster. A lot of the rookies have been lackluster, but I mean, Cholowski has definitely been one of those big impact players. He's been able to put a lot of time out in the ice, and he's one of those big impact guys who, has definitely stepped up for this, depleted Red Wings defense that is just covered in injuries. I mean, it's just, it's so good to see, a guy like this actually pan out. He was the first round pick back in 2016. And, I think, the Red Wings definitely have something special in Dennis Cholowski.
Absolutely. And we saw his impact in the Tampa Bay game. I mean, this guy is, laying down to block shots. He's pretty much all over the ice, and you can't even turn your head without seeing him. And I think that's what we need right now. Someone who's not afraid to sacrifice the body, someone who's not afraid to throw his weight around. And, of course, being a rookie, I mean, that's huge. So I hope to see Dennis Cholowski stay on the roster for many, many years to come.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I mean, I would love to see his progression with the Red Wings here, and hopefully he turns into a top defenseman, not only with the Red Wings but in the NHL. I think he has that potential. That's exactly why the Red Wings drafted him, and that's the kind of performance and the kind of impact that the Red Wings need from their rookies. So I think players like defenseman Joe Hicketts and Philip Hronek should definitely look at Cholowski and work with him and kind of build their game as well, and kind of see if they can begin to follow in his footsteps as some of those rookies who make more impact.
Absolutely. So as the podcast winds down, Chase, do you have any final thoughts for the listeners tonight, sir?
My one big thing, obviously, Red Wings fans have heard it plenty. And Nikk has said this on multiple occasions. The Red Wings you fans just cannot stop believing. Like, don't stop believing. As Journey has said, do not stop believing in this Red Wings team. They are still a very young hockey team. They have such a bright future, and it may be a little bit tough to watch them right now, but I'm telling you, if you tune in to all these games and you start going to the games and you're watching them and you're giving them your support, they will continue and to grow, and will begin to start playing at that high level, and they'll hopefully you'll be able to tune in when the Red Wings get their first win this season, and hopefully that's on Saturday against the Panthers. You can only expect the best, and you're just hoping that the Red Wings can get their season back on track.
Absolutely. And I guess for me, my final thoughts about everything before we have to get out of here, because we're both busy guys. I know Chase is a college student, and I want him to get his rest because I don't know if he has classes tomorrow, but I don't want him to miss any study time. So my final thoughts are simply, don't give up. If you want to be a fair weather fan, and I hate using that term, but if you want to be a fair weather fan, not to sound rude or anything, but maybe hockey isn't the sport for you. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. There's going to be good seasons, there's going to be bad seasons, but that's why we watch the game. That's why they play the game, and that's why we love the game.
you've seen teams go from absolutely nothing to, almost winning the Stanley Cup. And you go from a Stanley Cup winning franchise to a team that is struggling to get off the ground. So you got to take the good with the bad. And in this case, there's a lot of bad here in Hockeytown, but there's a lot of promise that's coming out of this bad. So try, a little bit longer to hold out hope, because I personally know that the Wings are going to start winning some games. They might not make it to the playoffs this year. Hell, they might not make it to the playoffs next year. But the playoff streak will start again. The Stanley Cup will return to its rightful home in Hockeytown. You just got to give it some time.
All right, I think that wraps up our podcast today. We'd just like to thank everybody, who's tuning in for this first episode. We want to thank everybody who, helped make this episode happen and, has helped build this podcast. We're super excited. This is, only the first installment of this podcast, but I'm hoping that this podcast is able to, provide a weekly listen for you guys, and you guys are able to, get your weekly fix of hockey out of this. We hope that our love of hockey translates to you, and you can see that week in, week out. So, again, we'd like to thank Jason and Allie for helping us with these awesome voiceovers that we have so far in the podcast, as well as Mark Phillips, who's one of our main editors and our main writer for our entertainment section at Michigan Sports Entertainment, for allowing us to have this opportunity, the podcast, and helping us get this set up. So we're really grateful for you guys and grateful for everyone at Michigan Sports and Entertainment. And we hope you guys are, will continue to listen to our podcast.
Absolutely. And we are still talking, and I think Chase and I are in agreement here. We want as much fan interaction as possible. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, and ideas on segments or anything that you want us to do to try and improve this podcast a little bit, reach out to us. We're Michigan Sports and Entertainment. We're on Facebook. Heck, we're all over. Detroit all the time. We never sleep. So we're going to churn out as many of these podcasts as you guys want to listen to, because I'm never going to get tired of this stuff. So you can find me on Facebook. I'm Nikk Perry. He's Chase Sussex. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us for a little over an hour here on the Hockeytown Rundown. Have an amazing night, and let's go Red Wings.